Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for part two of our August 26th, 2021 Lighting the Candle, A World That Works. Again, we've got Ken and Lisa. We're all old friends now. If you've listened to us before, you know who we all are. I'm Cill Correll. And just to kind of, reiterate, our conversations are designed and intended to randomly generate empowerment for you, the listener, and for us, the listeners and speakers on this thing. We spent the last half hour diving into breakdowns and breakthroughs, more so probably on the breakdown side. And I think we got a pretty good handle on what that experience is like. And so I'm suggesting that we spend some time discussing what breakthroughs are, can be, what does it have to do with achievement, what does it have to do with a scientific approach to causing things to occur frequently in your life by intention and by effort. So if we look at a breakthrough being this situation where the stars and planets seem to have arrived, and it might be a very random feeling that suddenly everything worked out in a situation where it doesn't typically work out. How's that for a broad enough road to drive the breakthrough car down? Okay, Lisa, I'm real interested in your thoughts on this.
Well, my first, well, breakthroughs. I'm trying to think of what my thought was as you were speaking. Was what we were talking about before was paying attention to both equally. Breakthroughs are to get outside of your comfort zone is in order to find the breakthroughs. I mean, because you're not going to find them just living status quo. And that could be anything like Ken was talking about as far as health goes. I mean, and the other part is to, like, there's books, our theories, 1% happier, 10% happy, or 1% better than you were, to only compare yourself to the you were yesterday and not compare yourself to other people all the time. I mean, I've been doing little physical things to improve my health too, or to, like Ken said, healthier longevity, or however, how did you put it, Ken?
Health span.
So do you want to just redefine what that is, Ken, in case folks didn't hear it in the last half hour?
Oh yeah, it's you're hearing it more and more. It's just the recognition of you have a lifespan, which is just how long you live, but then health span is the quality of the life you're living. So how healthy are you? So I mean, it's one thing to be 90 and immobilized and just in a place where you can't really even live your life anymore, and then there's being 90 and still doing things you enjoy and being energetic and vital. So so there's been this kind of shift from how do I live long to how do I live well. So yeah, which is just much more interesting to me.
No, I like the health span term. Thank you for bringing that up again, because I have been looking at even strange little things. I was watching a video about a man that is teaching people how to remember how to squat without killing themselves. And he's a physical therapist, and he teaches from the bottom up to get on the ground and do it. So I've been practicing that because it's something you just stop doing. And then now I can get out of a beach chair without looking like I'm rolling into a somersault and then standing up. Little things like that, because you learn rather quickly, but if whatever you stop doing, you just can't do anymore. So, move it or lose it kind of thing. And it's obvious every age that you become that you've stopped doing something, and because it became uncomfortable, you continue to stop doing it. Now you cannot do it, but you can relearn it again, which is a nice thing to learn as well. And like Ken was saying, with the different health things, everything is changing too. Like, how intensely should you exercise? What kind of dieting should you do? what's really happening when you cut calories as opposed to um, just just doing no food at all, or being careful of what you eat in one day, fasting for a day or two or three. How there are benefits to that, which before they used to think there wasn't. There's a, a doctor that wrote the obesity code, and he also wrote the diabetes code, and it's kind of the same solution for both. And I know a woman that's in her 80s that just lost 60 pounds, which she could never do before because she's fasting now,
Mhm.
and it's health, she's healthier as well. So I mean, there's ways to and different ways that we keep learning of how the human body reacts to things and how you can improve them all the time. And obviously, so like Ken said, health span is a much better way to look at it, and a greater goal to achieve, to work towards.
What a really interesting way to frame the whole notion of a breakthrough as well. Do you know that a breakthrough has to be extraordinary in the moment to be considered such, right? It can't be commonplace. But then you get, we were talking earlier, and I mentioned achievement and the whole science of progressing yourself to the point of excellence. That if a person or an organization has described its destination as excellence, then the ideal is one that is constantly being redefined on the journey. Excellent at the age of 5 has no bearing on what excellence looks like at the age of 45. So the concept, the ability to understand it, the ability to exercise whatever whatever you have, for capacities, and whatever you have for understanding, and whatever your reality is. And there are some things, from listening to people talk, and I really very much enjoyed this because I was in a course 20, 25 years ago, and was an Olympic athlete who was in that course as well. And he was very much determined to finish in the running, of the world championships on an annual basis, that he could actually have a shot at a bronze medal when, the Olympics came up 3 years later. Now, this guy was a 400-meter high hurdler. So he was about 6'5". He looked like a freaking gazelle. I mean, there was not an ounce of body fat on this guy at all. And when he walked, his muscles on his legs just rippled. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody that was that level of like a professional or a college basketball player. These guys, they're so aerobicized. They are so 150% in terms of their muscles doing peak performance all the time. And so what he had determined, with his coach, is that there was this little small voice inside of his head that his coach told him that he would have to be able to listen to that voice powerfully in order for him to accomplish the most that his body could accomplish. And the coach told him, you have the innate and the earned capacity to stand on the podium and be handed a bronze medal. So in this course, he would stand up occasionally and he would share what he heard from somebody else, like the 80-year-old that just lost 60 pounds, or the person who was going back to college in their 40s and was scared to death that they wouldn't be able to make the grade. And he stood up and he said, I'm clear about one thing right now. Y'all have the same little voice that I do. And those little voices, they got to be talking to each other, because they're changing the subject, but the language and the syntax of the sentences is all the same. And so when he said, I understand now that in order for me to get out of my own way, I'm going to have to love this little voice to the point where I invite it to talk to me as much as humanly possible. and I invite it to say the meanest and the most vile things to me that would normally, I would have to avoid it and not listen. And when he said that, um, everybody in the room was completely struck by what he had discovered. And there was this really kind of a groan of and also clapping, and people stood up and said, "Thank you. That is the most outrageous thing I've ever heard a human being say, and it is so personal and so true for me." And then on it went. Well, the guy ended up he ended up I don't think he ended up going to the Olympics. I think he decided that that wasn't his path, that he'd spent most of his, from age 8 or 9 to the time when he was 19 or 20, being an athlete to the exclusion of almost everything else in his life. And he wound up going to the trials, the Olympic trials. And when he got there, he ended up doing very well at the Olympic trials, but he decided that he was not going to go to the Olympics after all. Which, when I heard this, I thought to myself, I got to talk to this guy. And so we had exchanged phone numbers. I gave him a call and I said, "So what happened?" He said, "It finally dawned on me. I'm not an athlete at all. In fact, I don't even like running." Okay. He said, "I've been doing this because I had no choice. This was the only thing that I had decided that I'd ever be any good at." And he said, once I realized that that was not so, once I realized that I could be good at anything, I was willing to listen to that little voice fully and to embrace it and let it be as mean to me as possible, I had nothing left to prove. There's no being handed a medal that would ever top that experience, that to know I am good enough and I am able to accomplish anything I set my mind to. So this is a kid, 20 years old, unbelievable. So I don't know, I'm getting a little bit choked up just thinking about, the conversation and the breakthroughs, but the whole goal of life in terms of what breakthroughs are is to always learn more about yourself. For in the end, that's all we truly can ever know. Yes? Thus,
that was a powerful realization that he had.
Experiences.
Yeah. Either one of you may go ahead and go so that Eric doesn't have.
I was going to say too that.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Because I've been going through an interesting challenge, because that the challenge of and I think coming out of your comfort zone could also be called challenging yourself every day too. And I recently was taking a class in storytelling, which is way out of my comfort zone. But I found myself, when I was practicing and researching the story, because we were retelling an old story, just the practice and the researching it, and I was constantly walking around with a smile on my face while I was doing it. And it just felt so good to challenge myself and to meet the challenge. And not that I did fabulously in the retelling of the story, but that I did it at all and stretched myself was so. I mean, I think that's what people need to do for themselves all the time, things like that.
Yeah, they call that getting muscle, when you do things a few times and then it becomes like more of a habit. And then then you start to actually feel like it's something that you're not only can do and you're competent at, but you enjoy doing. And you also enjoy the little flubs and the fluffs and whatever else it is along the way that keeps you smiling all the time, Lisa. Ken?
Just the question that is worth asking is, what are the practices of today that will lead to the breakthroughs of tomorrow? And especially for an athlete, for most athletes anyway, they spend a lot more time practicing than they do playing. So, one of the ways to keep from burning out is find the joy in the practice, so that you're not just living your life to run the race, you're living your life and you get to run the race, you know? So, and then those little moments and trophies and medals just become symptoms of an underlying satisfaction with the person you're practicing to be on a daily basis, you know? And then, yeah, that can be very fluid and it can change and express itself in different ways, but it's still you. And like you said, you're connected to who that you is. You know, that's a pretty cool way to live your life, I think.
So the 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 moral of this story, and I want to say, if you can point to anyone who's ever been at the apex of, like, they set their own goals and produced so much more than their peers or other people that had done what they'd done. I want you to think about Tiger Woods by the age of 30, what Tiger had accomplished. And even at the age of 30, he'd say, I would much rather go out and practice and hit balls, to hone my ability to hit the same shot 2, 3, 4 times in a row than playing, for the biggest purse or playing for a Grand Slam title. Yeah, it's good to do that, but everybody that I've ever heard that I would consider to be the best at what they do loved the practice part of it. That opportunity to very carefully hone their skill to their own expectation and not the expectation that competition brings. The competition, Lisa, did you say earlier that being in competition with who you were yesterday, that's the really kind of a neat
Right.
thing. And if we all have that opportunity to tell the truth about who we are on a daily basis and not live in a romantic fantasy about, whether or not we have anything to say about our lives, then you come full circle back to what Ken had to say about what practice today makes tomorrow's breakthroughs possible. It's so simple and yet maybe not so easy. So Ken, throughout your adult life, I mean, I've only known you now for seems like about 7 or 8 years. When we first started hanging out, when coming to Quester's Way. When was the first year that you were in Quester's Way? Because I came along probably 5 months or 6 months after you started.
2016.
Okay, so it's coming up on 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seems longer.
Yeah.
And I just remember the in addition to what you're doing with your mind on a daily basis in terms of the books that you read and the things that you do, your exercise routine and all of the things that you do that have nothing to do with karate, even though that is your area of expertise, that there are very few people in life that get to the level that Ken Caputo has accomplished with the domain of karate and instructing and training people. That's me saying that.
Well, thank you.
If you stop and think about it, Mr. Valari, how many people do you think he was responsible for training in his lifetime?
I have no idea. Tons. I mean, figure that's 50 plus years of, teaching and working with people and setting people up to then teach other people. And yeah, it's pretty huge impact.
And I wonder if you were to ask him, who he thought the most important people in his life, because I actually asked John this question, your mentor, who are the most important people that you train? And he looked at me and he laughed a little bit in his John way. And he said, the ones I'm with.
Yeah.
It's always right here, right now. This is the most important, thing for me. And I took that away, and I thought that was really kind of encouraging, that we're not preparing ourselves to be good at something once or twice in our lives. We're preparing ourselves to be excellent at what we do on a daily basis, no matter where we are and what we're doing.
Well, and the cool thing about, if you think of it as, the value of practice is you get to make mistakes, you get to try things that may or may not work. It's the whole idea is it's just there's not the pressure, but there's still a focus. You're practicing for a reason. So yeah, I mean, and really that's what led to Quester's Way. I mean, the whole idea was just 5 practices. What will your life be like if you move every day, do something good for your brain every day, you work on your relationships with yourself and others, connect every day, focus on fuel, how you bring nutrients into your body, and empowerment, being present and having belief in yourself and your value in the world, and just let's experience those things in a fun, crazy environment, and we're all on a quest to be our best selves. So we all do that in our own unique way, and let's do it together, and we'll learn from each other. And that was really it. That's all I've ever done my entire adult life. It's just move, think, connect, fuel, empower a little bit as best I can every day, even if it's just for a minute. Some days are better than others, but it doesn't matter because it's all practice anyway. And then when the unexpected games of life come up, the breakthroughs and the breakdowns, it's just like practice. You just do it one more time. So
and that's the other really empowering thing that I've taken away from our knowing each other. And one of John's favorite sayings, that just for now, the best that you can, just for now.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that while your intention is for each and every day to be the best day ever, why wouldn't you have that intention if you were awake?
Mhm.
And if you were open to the possibility that each day can be the best day you ever had in succession,
Yep.
and all you have to do is just the best that you can, just for right now. Just for right now, do the best you can. Let that sink in just a little bit. And then the whole idea of breakthroughs, where a breakthrough is natural, it's a commonplace occurrence. It's the level that peak performers operate all the time. And you don't have to be a peak performer to somebody else's standards. You don't have to be a peak performer athletically or any particular way whatsoever. The peak performer is somebody who's always questing for what is possible and what would be the best possible expression of my life right now.
Totally agree.
Yeah. There's a wide open space that I think almost any listener or any other participant in this conversation could find themselves in. There's no reason why you have to resign yourself to a life that doesn't seem to be suiting you. And each time that you get knocked down, whether it's a vodka drink, a whiskey drink, you got to get up again, And that Chumbawamba song, I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Yeah.
So when that is unfortunately for most people, what they're waiting for is for something bad to happen to them so they can change their life and react to it, which means that they've kind of settled into a space where nothing's really great, but nothing's really too bad. And I guess this is okay. Nothing wrong with that at all. However, if you stop and think about what got you out of bed this morning, it wasn't hoping that today wouldn't be any worse than yesterday. And if that were your thought, that hopefully today will not be as bad as yesterday, what an opportunity to take a look at this whole notion of best day ever, best that you can just for right now. It's a great conversation to find yourself in.
Especially in the mornings. Yeah, in mornings, I'm thinking. Mel Robbins talks about this. Her new practice is to high five yourself in the mirror every morning. I mean, mornings is the way, that's where you start. So if you just start with not, like you said, Bill, I find it an odd thought to have somebody wake up and say, I hope it's just not worse than yesterday. I mean, change your thought, change your day too. I mean, change your thoughts, change your mind. Wayne Dyer, there's a bazillion books on just that alone, that practice alone. So if you start your morning thinking, wow, I'm going to make this a good day, and then high five yourself, you know,
Yeah.
anything. I bought a pillowcase recently that says good morning on it, and I turn it over at night, and then every day when I make my bed, my pillow says good morning to me.
That's awesome.
And then at some point, Lisa, you get really arrogant and you say, best day ever. Like, how audacious is that? Who's going to stop you? I mean,
How does that happen?
yeah. Well, any other thoughts on breakdowns, breakthroughs, anything that seems to make some sense now that maybe didn't make sense a little while ago? Any thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the thing that comes to mind is one of my mentor's little metaphors he would give. He's just, if you think the breakthroughs and breakdowns are big old waves, you can be either standing there watching them come crashing down on you, or you can be the surfer who's looking forward to them, because every day you're getting more skillful at being able to surf those waves. So, and again, it's just perspective and, are you practicing to be skillful at surfing them, or are you just waiting for them to come crashing down on you? So and that was always really helpful to me. It kept me focused and motivated to continue to practice, often for waves that never come. And that's all right too.
Yeah. Lisa?
Like what Ken said too, but I also was thinking to make it general when you're looking at something, back up a little bit and then see how this could be better, and how it is not that big of a blip in the whole perspective of things. So a breakthrough and a breakdown can be, they're basically two sides of the same coin. There's opposites are always going to be there, but you can think of them differently, gather them from a new perspective, and how can this be a learning experience instead of a breakdown?
Yeah. What comes after you've declared a breakdown is an opportunity to make it a victory.
Exactly.
So when I'm thinking in terms of those areas, I mean, we all have areas that we get stopped. And again, the difference between the surfer and the person getting pounded by the waves is a difference between force and power. The force is trying to resist and live through the waves crashing. The power is trying to play with it and become accomplished at dancing with and riding the wave. So I don't know, I'm going to leave everybody with this thought. You have a choice in your life that maybe you could become a better dancer with whatever it is that's causing you pain and causing you, dissatisfaction in your life. And the whole idea is human beings experience pain. We just don't want to spend any more time being in that space than we absolutely have to. So here's to you getting out of Dodge and getting out of jail free and passing go and collecting your $200 every time there's an opportunity to do otherwise. Enjoy your lives and come back and listen to us again. We're on almost every podcast platform. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.